Thank you so much for joining us in our first ever HerCDM live streamed event. My name is Jillian Nalesny, and I'm president of HerCDM, and I'm so excited to welcome our guests Danielle, Jen, and Tiffany from Dell Technologies to learn about their experiences in the tech industry and how they got to be where they are today. As you listen, feel free to submit any questions you have through the chat feature as they discuss. Okay, Danielle, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Jillian. We're very honored to be here. Super excited to be able to speak with HerCDM and everybody who's tuning in. So thank you so much. I am joined today by, like you said, Jen and Tiffany, and they are amazing colleagues of mine at Dell Technologies. And so we're going to start off with just doing some quick introductions. So Jen and Tiffany, warning, I'm going to ask you to do the same here in just a second. But basically just share your name, role, and what you studied in school and how long you've been with Dell Technologies. So I'll start off. Obviously, I'm Danielle Rourke. My role, I'm a higher education strategist. So I get to be an amazing mediator, translator between Dell Tech as a corporation and our higher education customers, like the colleges, universities, tech schools. So I really love my job. I also have a little bit of a side gig as an esports subject matter expert for higher education. So that's really fun, and I love doing that. What I studied in school, so I have actually an associate's degree in psychology, a bachelor's degree. I did a dual major in computer operations technology and business quality management. And then I have a master's in information technology. And then I have been with Dell actually since January. So it's been a really, really interesting 11 months learning a new job in the middle of the pandemic. So Jen, how about you?
Yeah, so Jen Kabler here. I am based out of Kansas City. I am currently our district leader for our storage platforms and solutions. So I've got a sales team across 4 states here in the Midwest. In school, I actually studied in criminal justice. So my bachelor's in criminal justice, and I was doing juvenile probation, believe it or not. Back to school to get a secondary bachelor's degree in marketing. And from there, had the opportunity to join into sales. So I'm doing technology sales now, and I've been doing that for 12 years, going on 13 almost now with Dell Technologies.
That's amazing. Thank you, Jen. And Tiffany, how about your background?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany Jenkins. I am based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and have been with Dell for 2 years now. And officially, I think 5 days will be my 2-year anniversary with Dell. So excited to be here and happy to be here. I am a part of our global client managed services organization, a director in the group responsible for our transition delivery, which is essentially getting our customers started on their new contracts with us for client managed services, which includes things like field technicians, help desk services, hardware and software asset management services, and we deliver those services on behalf of our customers in all types of different industries. So very happy to be here and looking forward to spending this time with you all today. Oh, background, I did forget that, my degree. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration and economics, and then went on to get my master's, my MBA from Wake Forest. So for those who are interested in how we get into technology careers without technology degrees, we can talk about that.
and that may very well come up. So thank you. So Jen, I'm actually going to direct my first question to you. How did you get started in tech? I mean, yeah, you mentioned you have, a different degree and a different kind of background when you started. So what experiences led you to technology as a career?
Yeah, it was a very different path than probably most would think, but I love it. So I started with technology in general. My dad is an electrical engineer. So growing up as a kid, I had a little circuit board that I would use my Morse code on, and I played with Connects, and I did a bunch of engineering type things. And so I think my dad was really sad I didn't go straight into engineering to follow in his footsteps. But throughout my childhood and into high school and college, I always had some passion for technology. Even when I was in theater, I did the sound and the lights. So just any kind of technology I could get my hands on. Went into criminal justice and wanting to help people and really to help kids, and decided that for a myriad of reasons that wasn't going to be the right long-term thing. I still had that itch for technology. And so when I went back to school, I got introduced to, at the time, EMC, who Dell acquired a few years ago. And while I was in college, and my professor told me about this company called EMC out in Boston, I had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't understand storage. I didn't understand coding. I didn't understand what data analytics even were. Then again, 13 years ago, it was a little bit different. But it was very interesting to me because I'd always been somebody very logically brain driven, wanting to connect the dots, but still wanting to help people. And so I think it was a really good way to get into technology and still helping people through that sales. So I still do the designing, I still do the architecting. I've got some engineering resources to help, but I really got into it because it had always been a passion of mine, whether it's engineering or technology or computers, smartphones, you name it. I just always had an interest in that. So when I was able to pivot my career into that area, and thankfully I had a sales professor really who took the time to understand what I wanted to do, what excited me, that was how I got into the right sales position to be able to sell technology.
That's fantastic. And Tiffany, I apologize. I'm gonna also ask you a little bit because I didn't realize that you also didn't have like a degree background in tech. So I'd be really curious to hear that from you as well.
Absolutely. It's actually an interesting pathway that I'll shorten in a very short story. I was interviewing for jobs and was looking for operations type jobs because, business degree, operations manager type role seemed right. And interview, and was at this event. And a woman by the name of Sue Blue, will never forget her name for the rest of my life because I thought it was a cute name, stopped me in the hallway and just started chatting with me. And I said, hey, this is great. We're having this great conversation. She pulls me aside and says, hey, come talk to me. So we go sit down. Do you have a copy of a resume? Sure, here you go. We have this great, fantastic conversation. I have no idea I'm interviewing for a job. No idea. Walk out. I was like, oh, she's such a nice woman. That was great. And, go on to finish my day. And a couple weeks later, I get an offer letter from a financial institution that I used to work for their leadership development program. And their leadership development program was specific for operations and technology. So you got to do a year's worth of rotations through basically the entire operations and technology of the bank. Like, sweet, you're going to pay me to do rotations for a year? I'm in. So I go, I do it, and I'm thinking, okay, I can still get an operations job. This is awesome. I did about 7 or 8 rotations through operations, realized there was no way ever in life that's what I wanted to do. So I didn't finish the program knowing what I did want to do, but I knew what I didn't. So there was a job opening for a trainer in technology. And I said, well, I'm a people person. I'm sure I can be a trainer. I know nothing about technology, but it'll be fine. I will convince somebody I can do this. I did convince somebody that I could teach other people about things I've never done. And that is how I started my technology career, by doing training. And it was on platform engineering. So all of the work that happens kind of behind the scenes on the computers when they're imaged and prepared to be used within the policies and procedures of a particular organization. So that is what I started training on, and have never looked back. Have been in technology since.
That's fantastic. That's a great story of, I love the fact that you were like, hey, I can train people on things I have no idea about. I'm going to
know
do
your
it.
skills, right?
I love that confidence. That's great. And, so one thing that I'm curious about, I know, for instance, in my background, I got the degrees in technology, but it wasn't until a little bit later in life that I actually started working in technology. And one of the things that I was a little bit surprised at, and I probably shouldn't have been surprised at, but technology is a pretty, male or masculine driven or dominated field. And so I was a little bit surprised, that there's a little bit of a stigma that comes to being like, many times I would be the only woman in a project meeting. And, sometimes my voice would get overshadowed, or sometimes I wouldn't necessarily be asked my opinion about things, even though, maybe my colleagues, my male counterparts, were at the same level or same knowledge that I was. And so that was something that surprised me a little bit. I also, had that experience, I think probably that most of us do, where, you're sitting in a room and you're focused on the goals, and then just for some reason, whether it's a comment somebody says or a joke that's made or something, you look around and you realize that you're the only woman in the room. And, you kind of start to feel a little bit self-conscious about that and alone. And so one of the things, like, I'm curious, if either of you have felt that way, and if either of you have experiences that way, and then B, how do you overcome it? And like, I know some of my suggestions, or at least some of my strategies that I've used to overcome that, was realizing, hey, I do have a reason to be here. I'm educated. I've been selected for this particular job. I've been selected to be on this project team. So obviously I have the worth to be here, and my voice is valid. My experience is valid. I'm curious about both of you. So Tiffany, do you mind if I start with you?
Absolutely. And I think I think it's safe to say, Jen, you've experienced this too. I mean, it's kind of a part of being in technology at this day and age, which the beautiful thing about it is we have the opportunity to change that. And we are changing that as hiring managers. We're changing that, and we aren't the only woman at the table, or the only woman of color at the table. But what I think I would share with everyone on the call is what helped me through those times was I have been extremely fortunate to have amazing advocates and support through my career. It came in the form of other women. It came in the form of men. And I'll share this story briefly and let Jen share with you as well. But I was in a meeting with a vendor. And at the time, I was responsible for that vendor in that contract. That contract was somewhere, give or take, $15 million a year. And I'm responsible for it. I proverbially signed the check to this vendor. And it was me, a male colleague of mine, and the vendor. And there were some problems, and I was addressing these problems in this meeting. And if you can imagine, we're sitting at a round table, and the vendor almost had their back to me facing my colleague, and was essentially just having a one-on-one conversation with my male colleague. And so, and I will also say I was much younger at the time. And I could assume he was a little bit surprised that maybe this younger person was managing this $15 million contract. But yes, I was. So I'm getting a little upset, thinking, well, why are you not talking to me? And my male colleague at the time, I think he had enough. And he stopped the conversation and he said, look, I have to tell you, I'm actually not the decision maker. You need to be talking to her. And it was that obvious that he was really not acknowledging even my presence there. And, oh, no, I wasn't meaning to do that. Yeah, you were. So now that we've re-level set this situation, would you like to start over? And from then on, I definitely had more of his attention. I don't know if I had his respect or not, but at the end of the day, he knew who was signing the check at the end of the day. So having colleagues and friends and advocates who support you, who will stand up for you when it's sometimes hard for you to stand up for yourself, is, to me, has been vital in my path and in my career. And now that I am further in my career, I can promise you there's not a vendor who's going to sit across from me and turn their back on me. I could assure you that's not going to happen. My confidence is at a different place than it was then. But that's what those people do for you, is they help you build your confidence so that when you walk in the room, everybody knows you're there and they actually want to know what you have to say. So Jen, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. And especially being younger, I had a very similar experience where I was meeting with a customer and I'm up on the whiteboard and I'm architecting out their data center and where they want to go in their vision. And I was getting quite a bit of sass from this director of technology. And at the end of it, he finally said, well, you passed my test. And I said, what test are you speaking of? And he said, well, a lot of young women come in here, you're very attractive. And so I just needed to see if you really knew your stuff. And I said, thank you. I don't think I need to have any of your business. And I walked out the door, right? Now, my boss maybe wasn't happy I turned business away, but completely understood that, especially being younger women in technology, there are going to be some of those biases out there. And I love what you said, Tiffany, about having those advocates. And that's something I learned also as I got older to have. It was really critical to having. But I think another thing that you can do, being the woman with maybe the only voice in the room, is also it's upon you to use that voice. And it's upon you to say, hey, you may look at me as a woman, but if I'm doing the best and I'm closing the biggest deals and I'm the one that is really leading the charge for this project, for this department, for this whatever, they can look at me and think whatever they want. But if I'm doing the best, then I've proven that it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, I can still do it. And so I think you talked about the confidence, Tiffany, and I would agree with that, is also know your stuff, know your worth, and know your value, because your voice is really strong. Because when you can prove you know your stuff and you can speak in that group, it might be a little harder to get their attention, but once they do, they're going to listen, and you're going to have that backing to say, hear me, I know what I'm talking about. And so I would just say have confidence in yourself, as hard as it is. Use voice as much as you can. And then, like Tiffany said, really make sure that you have some of those allies, and don't be hesitant to call it out in the room. I was in a training one time and there was 33 people in the room. They were all middle-aged white men and I was the only female. And I brought it up when I said something. I said, it's a lot of middle-aged white men in here. I guess you guys probably want some diversity of thought to be brought to the table here. And I said that. And I think we need to express that, not in a negative way and not to bolster ourselves, but to say, I have something to contribute. I really would like you all to listen to me. And it's a hard thing to do, but I promise you, if you can build that confidence and get those allies like Tiffany spoke about, you will be wildly successful.
That's great. Thank you both for sharing. And it makes me think, even further to go along what you're saying there, Jen, about allies, and then just kind of going back to, colleagues, Tiffany, and having that support is great. What about mentors? Did you have any, mentors or even maybe a protege, maybe somebody that you were mentoring that really motivated you and inspired you to be your true authentic self? So I'm curious, Tiffany, did that resonate? Did that happen for you?
It's not, did I have a mentor? It's how many did I have, and what areas of my life were they supporting me in, right? So I've have not past tense, have mentors that are at Dell, not at Dell, that are really suited for helping me professionally, and others helping me personally, because I'm a whole person. I am not just a Dell employee. So I actually think it's important that we have mentors and people that we can really confide in and help us grow our whole selves. And in terms of a protege, again, not a protege, because I think that old adage, to whom much is given, much is expected. So I am always looking and open to having mentees, or just those who have some interest in something that I can give to them. I'm happy to do so. And I maintain now about 3 mentees at the moment who, my what I tell them is, hey, I'm but one perspective. I'm not going to tell you what to do, how to do it. All I can do is share with you what my experiences were. And my goal for you is that you will be further along in your career where you are now than I was then. That you will learn from the mistakes that I made, and you will use your own style, your own voice, your experiences too, to determine your path forward. And I think that's important when you're looking at both mentor and mentee relationships. It's not mentor tells mentee what to do, go do it. It's mentor provides experiences, provides suggestions, recommendations, but at the end of the day, you as a mentee are taking that in along with feedback from other places to figure out your own voice, your own style, your own authentic self. So I think mentors and mentees learn a lot from each other. And my hope for all of you is that if you don't have one, if you take a takeaway from today's session, start there. Start there, find a mentor, someone that you can really open up to and confide in, and someone that'll be supportive of you as you look to make the next steps in your educational career, as well as stepping out into the world from a business perspective.
And Tiffany, I'm going to use a little bit of my insider knowledge here. So, and maybe throw you a curveball, hopefully not too much of a curveball, but I know you were involved with Dell Technologies Girls Who Game initiatives, to really help. And for those of you who may not know, Dell Technologies works with school districts across North America to provide opportunities for like 4th through 9th grade girls to participate in groups and really keep that investment and that interest in STEM careers and in technology. And it utilizes Minecraft as a way to really bring those girls together and help them learn coding and help them learn about computers, and also see that there are other, female mentors that are there and are making their way successfully in technology. So I'm curious, Tiffany, have you had any, ahas or takeaways, or, what's been your favorite thing about the Girls Who Game portion?
Oh, seeing their faces. Not that I don't love my colleagues' faces, I do, but those little cute faces. But seriously, I think as Jen and I were smiling earlier about the fact that we have an opportunity to change the fact that there's one woman at the table, but it starts way before you get to the boardroom. It starts much younger, and making sure that young girls know that there is absolutely a place for you here in technology at the table. And the more that we can model that and show, yes, we can have very successful, lucrative, I might add, careers in technology, the more that will want to follow and stay. That pipeline is very leaky in terms of girls and women coming up in an educational sense and actually going into a STEM related career. So my goal is to catch them young, get them hooked, and then hopefully see them all the way through a STEM career. So that's rewarding to me. And I love just spending time with them and answering their questions, because some of them are so just innocent in a way that I'm like, I never would have even thought to ask that question. That's awesome that they're even thinking about that at that age. So for the young women on the phone, definitely get involved as well with encouraging these girls to stay involved in STEM related activities.
That's great. I love that advice. And, it also, I kind of want to go back to one of the things that you had mentioned a little bit before, as far as, advocating for yourself and making sure that, you have to kind of stand up for yourself. And Jen, you also kind of spoke on that too. And so, I want to ask that to both of you. I mean, as far as advice that you have for being your own advocate. And I know you both shared a couple of examples there, but how do you make sure your voice is heard sometimes in those scenarios or in those environments, where maybe it gets drowned out? And I totally want to be vulnerable with everybody here a little bit. When I was younger in my career, I had no idea how to do that appropriately. And I don't want to leave you with the impression that like I was just ranting and raving and leaving a bad name for women everywhere. But I would be in a room full of male colleagues and I'd be asked to get up and present, and they'd be talking to each other, or they'd kind of be ignoring my presentation or what I was talking about. And sometimes I would try to play that the boys' game, maybe you could say, like I'd try to rub them, or not rub them, sorry. I'd try to like, elbow them and be like, what are you guys laughing about? Jokes over there, things like that. And I only realized as I got older that there were much better ways for me to do that and for me to stand up for myself and to give myself my own voice, rather than just trying to play the game that I had seen them playing. So I'm curious for both of you, and maybe we'll start with Jen. How do you, or what do you recommend for being your own advocate and making sure that your voice is heard in a productive way?
It's hard. Because to your point, it's something that we're having to constantly vie for, and it does take that energy to do. But again, I think if you find that deep down passion and motivation to do it, you're going to be way more successful, I think, than your male counterparts, and have lucrative careers, as Tiffany called it. So I think the biggest thing is when those situations arise or somebody says something that catches you off guard. And I remember I was mentoring a gal and she was in a room and they were talking about consolidation. And he looked at her and said, well, think about if you were to take all of your blouses and put them in the same closet. And she didn't know how to respond to that. But I think she did a very phenomenal job that said, okay, so just like taking all of your shirts and putting them in a closet. And I thought that was a great analogy, right? She wasn't trying to be rude or disrespectful, but it was to put a perspective of using those words and saying, okay, I understand the analogy you're trying to make to me. I'm going to make it back to you to make sure that I heard it. And hopefully, something like that will spark oh yeah. I think that's a way to do it. Another really good advice that I got was, if you hear somebody say something, what you probably shouldn't do is call it out in front of everybody and make a big scene. It's really great to take that conversation offline and say, hey, I heard you say this. I'm not sure that was the best way to approach the situation because I interpreted it this way. Maybe you might try something like this in case you run across a woman you need to present to in the future. And so having that courage, again, it's hard, but to take that person aside, help them understand what it is that maybe they said, emotion that they did, and shed light on it. Because sometimes people have those unconscious biases that if we don't bring them to the table, they're never going to change. So I think that that's something else that can happen. So one, if you hear somebody say something in a smaller group, use those words back at them in a more appropriate tone or a more appropriate analogy, maybe. And then I think the second thing is taking those people offline and having those conversations with them of just saying, hey, I know you probably didn't mean this because I know you're a great person. I know that wasn't your intent. This is how I heard it, how it came across. And I just wanted you to know in case somebody else maybe took it that way as well. And so I know I maybe strayed a little bit from how do you find your voice, but I think those are some ways that you can make sure to use your voice to help impact that change in some of those situations.
Yeah, I'll even take that just a step further, a little bit different, but the same. One of the things that I promised myself when I came to Dell and to me, it was almost like a fresh slate. New company, so new peers, new boss, new literally everything. And I said to myself, first of all, I'm going to take the advice that I give my mentees often, and I'm going to stand up for myself from day one. So I'm going to set the expectation that I'm going to stand up for myself, not in a mean way, not yelling and screaming in the middle of the room, but that I don't have to sit back and allow for others to define me. The first step I took was to have a conversation with my manager. And I know this could probably feel really uncomfortable, but I can say it is the best thing I ever did. And my colleagues, my peers are actually, and I actually do not have another female peer. I am the only woman on my team. And all of my peers are jealous of me and have said so because my boss treats me the way I told him I wanted to be treated. And I made that clear from day one. We had a very specific one-on-one, and I said to my boss, hey, I want to have a conversation about how you can be a good manager for me. This is what I need. And this is what I'm going to do for you. Is there anything else that you need from me? We had a dialogue, we set the expectations early, and we have had an amazing working relationship since. Some of my peers struggle with their relationship with my manager. I don't, because we made it clear from the very beginning what our working relationship was going to be like. And so again, I know that's probably not the easiest thing ever, to think that you're going to go tell your manager how your manager is going to manage you. But the liberation I feel in knowing that there is mutual respect and mutual understanding for what I need to be successful, and the fact that I follow through on everything that I said I was going to do, he holds me accountable, I hold him accountable. Well, the bottom line is he's getting great work out of me. So he has no incentive to not do what I've asked of him, because at the end of the day, he's getting great work and he's not disappointed about that. So, that's something that I think as we try to set ourselves up for success, it means being bold sometimes. And while that may feel scary, it may feel intimidating, it is incredibly satisfying when it goes your way. So I'm not going to say everything will go perfect. I'm not going to say that. But I will tell you, those moments when you're bold and you stand up for yourself in the right way, you'll know it and it'll feel really good.
That's amazing. Thank you both for sharing that. And I just want to give you both a shout out really quickly. In the comments, we've had a comment that says, thank you for sharing your experience in such an empowering and encouraging way. So again, like, what you're saying is resonating with those people that are listening. So, and we do have a couple of questions out there, but I'm going to get us through a couple more of the questions that I wanted to ask because I'm the moderator. But then we'll circle back around to the other questions that are in the chat. So thank you all so much for submitting those and keep submitting them. Something that I'm curious about, we've all talked about our life experiences a little bit here. I'd love to hear, each of us share what are some of your biggest successes, or even some of your biggest learning opportunities that you've had in your career. And I'm going to selfishly share one of my successes is that I was actually a development manager for 5 years at Cargill, which is world's largest privately held food company. I had to say that a lot at career fairs, but I was a development manager there, and literally I had one woman on my team. And so all of the rest of my team, I had approximately, depending on the year, between 20 and 30 people on my team. And so I think I had like one woman onshore and one woman offshore on my team. And so, not only was I slightly, I don't know that I'd say intimidated by the fact that I had that few women on my team, but I was a little bit intimidated by the fact that all of my team, whether they were female or male, they were very, very skilled at development and coding and, AS400 and full stack and all of these things that I knew enough about to be dangerous, but please don't ever ask me to code in them because I would not be able to do it. But still, I was being asked to lead these people and to manage them. And, it warmed my heart because my biggest successes that I still look back on and actually hang on to when I'm having doubts about myself or having that imposter syndrome that we all share, is the fact that multiple times I had different men on my team that definitely knew more about their job and knew how to do their job better than I did, come up to me and thank me for the support I gave them and for the encouragement I gave them and for the willingness to sit down and learn, from them and talk with them and figure out how I could help. And so those were some of my biggest successes, is that I didn't have to know their job 100% of the time. I just had to be that resource for them and be that support, and also be willing to listen and to learn and not, be out there trying to prove myself so much at something that I obviously didn't know. So I'm curious, Jen and Tiffany, like, do you guys have a big success or a big learning opportunity that you'd like to share with the group? And let's start with Jen.
Yeah, I think there's learning opportunities every day, and I think there's successes every day, some bigger than others. But I think one of the biggest successes I had was it was at a conference for internally within Dell Technologies, and we had about 300 of us in a room together. And there was some new products coming out and new messaging that we had to learn and new technology that was unfamiliar. And we were broken up into groups. And in a room of about those 300 people, there was, I think I counted 19 women. And at the end of it, there ended up being a competition. And of course, many of the men in their room would raise their hand and they wanted to get up on stage and they wanted to do the pitch off, and they were selecting 3 people. And so I told myself, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the woman that's going to get on stage and I'm going to crush this. And so we got to go home that night and practice, and we came back the next morning, and the first gentleman went and it was pretty decent. And the second gentleman went, it was a little bit better. And then I got to go up there and little pat on the back here, crushed it. And at the end of the day, it ended up in a standing ovation across the room. And afterwards, a lot of those women came up to me and they said, oh my gosh, I am so thankful you stood on that stage and did this, because I didn't know if I could. And they all could have, or they wouldn't have been in this training, because they're all wildly successful individuals. But to hear that just felt very wonderful, and it sparked them of wanting to speak up more and be engaged more. And I even had some of the men come up to me afterwards and said, thank you for representing the woman's voice in this room, because it is underrepresented. So I thought it was very powerful that in all honesty, I was doing it a little bit selfishly to me to prove I can do this. But the impact that it had in being bold, as Tiffany said earlier, and using that voice really encouraged other people to find their voice. So that was a really good touching moment for me that I'll just never forget, right? And it built my brand and my network by finding that bold voice and doing that. So I think that was a really big success that I would deem as helping others find their voice.
So that means I have to do opportunity, right?
You do you, Tiffany. Like, do whatever you want.
I can do that. Sometimes these are the things you learn from, guys. These are the things you learn from. I definitely had a big learning opportunity, and it led me here. Actually, it led me here to Dell, and I'm proud of it for making that move. But at the time, I was working at a financial services institution, and I worked really hard, guys. I worked really hard. I mean, heads down, like Jid, knocking it out the park. You asked me to do it. I don't care if I've never done it. I'll figure it out. And that was kind of my thing. My thing is figuring stuff out, working in the gray. Doesn't matter. You throw it at me, I will get it done. And I thought that's what you needed to do to be successful. Get the job done. Get the job done. Do it well. Do it great. Be amazing at your job, and you'll get promoted. And you'll continue to rise in your career. Newsflash, not true. It's not true. The rules of the game change after a while. Just keeping your head down and doing your work and doing it well isn't enough. And I'm going to tell you all that now because I want you to know that now. And when you're in school, you do your homework, you study really, really hard. You get A's and you're rewarded for that hard work. Hard work equals A equals the award. After a certain while, when you move up in your career, doing hard work is not all it takes. It takes building relationships. It takes understanding how your organization works. It takes being willing to stand up and speak out for yourself and say, hey, I'm interested in that promotion. Don't assume that people know that you are interested in that promotion. When I tell you guys that was a huge learning for me, it was a huge learning for me because here I am thinking I am just positive. This is my year. I'm going to get this big promotion. I'm going to become a senior vice president. Like, this is happening. And the job went to somebody else. If you've seen those commercials, it was the woman who's standing up ready to get the promotion and they give it to the guy. Totally happened to me. 100% happened to me. Devastated, upset, mad, angry, you name the emotion, I had it all at one time. Then you get up, you dust yourself off and you move on, which is exactly what I did. But that is my biggest learning that I made from the experiences that I've had is absolutely you got to do the work. Don't get me wrong. You got to do the work and you got to be good at it. But understand after a certain while, you do also need to bring in some new skills. You need to build relationships. You need to understand your organization. You need to speak up for yourself. You need to tell people, and not just one person, tell people that you're interested in growing your career, that you have aspirations so that you're on the radar. So when these opportunities come up, because not all of them are posted for everybody, when those opportunities come up, Tiffany Jenkins' name is in the room. And people are saying, Tiffany's ready for that next big role. I think we should give Tiffany a call. So I share that now again, because remember, my goal for my mentees is to make sure they learn something sooner than I learned it. Learn that today. Learn that today, take that forward, and start practicing those relationship building skills and speaking up for yourself.
Yeah, and if I can add on to that, Tiffany, I've had a similar learning, and I think that goes back to something that we said earlier as well when we talked about getting those allies and getting those advocates, because the more you tell other folks that you have interest to grow your career and that you're open to learning new things and new opportunities, then all of a sudden you have people speaking on your behalf. And so you're taking that advocacy or maybe that mentorship or menteeship, you're taking that to a sponsorship level where people are going to speak on your behalf, like you said, when you're not in the room. And I don't think we always think about that or wanting to use our voice in that way. And I know I've got passed over for promotion historically as well because I didn't use that voice effectively. And people were like, well, Jen, we didn't even know you were interested. And I was like, oh, well, nobody kind of came and talked to me about it. So, and I shrunk, and that was a big mistake. And so I think absolutely making it known to a lot of people who can then speak on your behalf and make sure that that name is known in any room at any leadership table is great advice, Tiffany. Definitely.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Thank you both. I'm going to ask one quick kind of lightning question, but it's going to lead into some of the questions we've gotten in chat. So
Okay.
Hopefully that'll work. So, my quick lightning question for both of you is, what's your favorite part about working at Dell Technologies? So Jen, do you want to start?
Yeah, I will simplify it lightning round in 3 things, because I ask this a lot and I talk about this a lot when I'm recruiting people. So any young women on here, I'm going to tell you why it's awesome. So working for Dell, first of all, it's the people. We work with amazing people every day. I wouldn't be at the same company for 12 and a half years if I didn't think the people that I had fun with, because you spend so much time with people you work with. The second piece I would say is the technology. We have amazing technology, and the amount of research and development that Dell puts into AI, machine learning, virtual reality, storage, cloud, all of those things is bar none any other company out there from a tech sector, at least in my opinion. Again, I'm a little biased here. And then the third is it can be very lucrative from a financial perspective. The technology industry is booming. And to be at a company that's in the forefront of that innovation and that research and development and being a part of that is been very financially great as well. I think there's always going to be that career in tech. It might pivot some, but there's always going to be career opportunity for you in technology space. So absolutely, I love the people. I love the technology that we have, and it's been financially fruitful for being a woman in tech too.
That's awesome. Thank you. Tiffany, what about you?
I'll say the opportunity, because I enjoy opportunity and variety. Let me say those 2 things together, actually, because I love the fact that today I've worked with a company in the dental field, automotive field, telecom, and probably another one, all today. That I get to work with companies in all types of different industries who have very, very different problems to solve, which means I get to use my brain to solve these very unique problems for each different customer in different industries. And from an opportunity standpoint, within my first 3 weeks of starting at Dell, I went to headquarters, went to Round Rock, had a great experience meeting everybody, and then the next week was going to Germany to start my first project. Of course, we're not going to Germany right now. No, none of that going on in the current situation. But at some point, we will see a sense of normalcy again, and I would love to be able to once again go see my customers globally. But the fact that I've had the opportunity within 3 weeks to travel globally and know that eventually that will be the case again. I mean, who doesn't want to go see the world?
That's fantastic. So here's the tie-in. We did have a comment, a question out there. And so it was, hi there. I'm not a female, but what positions are most available for college computer science graduates at Dell? I'm interested in being a software dev or a software engineer or any internship programs. So do either of you have advice for that person?
Well, I can say I've been participating a lot in college recruitment. So absolutely, there are internships, and we absolutely encourage you to apply. Know that there are roles that span from software development and engineering to sales to marketing to you name it, highly technical to not quite as technical, project managers, if folks are interested in that sort of aspect of technology, because we need great project managers to roll out all of these projects that we roll out on a daily basis. So definitely look to apply for those interns. I actually hosted an intern last year who I am happy to say has accepted a full-time position and will be coming back after he finishes his degree. So really excited about that. But the internship program is amazing. Dell invests a lot of time, a lot of money, and our senior leadership are fully committed to the internship program. You get to have a session with Michael Dell and several of our senior executives that I've yet to actually get to meet. So I highly encourage folks to sign up or apply for the internship program, which usually starts in June. Is that right? Maybe somewhere around
There's
there.
quite a few in there, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around there, June to August or June to July, something. Anyway, please go out and look because there are tons of internships.
Yeah, and from a technology perspective, one that I'm familiar with is we call it our GSAT program. And so the idea behind that is that if you're really interested in the technology side, maybe more so from a pre-sales type role, and Dell does this with a lot of different programs. This is the one I'm just most familiar with, but it's a 6-month program where you just get to learn so much so quick. Your brain just gets to absorb so much cool stuff that they do, and it's a fast track program. And they do it in an internship form, and then they also do it in a job right out of college. And the intent is to get as much experience for those right out of college to get into the working world too. So it's a nationally recognized program. It's called our GSAT program. It's absolutely amazing. So that's a program that we have out there too.
Fantastic. Thank you all. And I think we are sharing as well at the bottom of the screen, the jobs.dell.com/students US. That's the brand spanking new internship site that's out there for US students. So definitely please go out there, familiarize yourself. We'd love to work with any of you. So thank you. I do want to there's a couple more questions in the chat that I wanted to make sure we got to. The first one is, any tips for what to look for in a mentor? How can students find mentors in the industry? So, Tiffany, what do you think?
Absolutely. So first of all, I think when you're looking for a mentor, think about what you are looking for and what is it that you want in a mentor. Quick example, I had a colleague that I was working with at a different company in my role, and he was a master at being able to take bad situations and somehow make them good. I don't know how anybody gets as good at that as he does, but he was a master at it. And I truly looked up to him for that reason. As a young woman in technology, we find ourselves in some sticky situations. I was like, I could use some tips on how you do this. And I just reached out to him and I specifically said, hey, you are amazing at this. Would you mind being my mentor? And you would maybe be surprised, maybe not, but I have never asked somebody to be my mentor who said no, or who was just like, no, that's just not something I do. Maybe they're a little busy and they say, hey, absolutely, I might not have a ton of time, but sure, we can meet, once a month or once a quarter. But most people are more than happy to support you and be there for you, particularly women as we're trying to grow our careers in technology. So first, it's, what do you want in a mentor? And do you see it in somebody that you admire? And you ask them to be your mentor. And in terms of how do you find someone, industry could be important to you, or a certain skill set may be important to you. Think about what it is you're actually looking for, because like I shared with you guys, I have lots of mentors in different industries, different companies. It's really more about what I've seen in them that I feel like maybe I could use some coaching in or some advice on, and I reach out to them on an individual basis.
Excellent. Jen, what about you?
Yeah, I would reiterate that, right? Understand what it is you want out of a mentor. There was a gentleman at work who was phenomenal at financial selling. And I'm like, I need to learn, if I want to be in a boardroom of a client or a customer, I need to better understand financial selling. And so I reached out, just like, hey, you're really great at this. I'd love to learn more. Is there any time that you might be able to assist me in educating me on that? And again, same thing Tiffany said, I have never been told no. Inside the industry, if you're getting into the industry and you're a little bit newer, one of the things that helped me was maybe going to a professor or somebody that personally, maybe an aunt, maybe an uncle, or a friend of your parents, or somebody maybe who's in the industry, and just asking them, hey, I'm really looking for a mentor to help me in this. I know you're in that industry or that role and responsibility. Is there somebody that might be able to help me with that? So also sometimes using a network, even if it's just from your own family or friends, to help you find that mentor. If you know what you're looking for, is another great way to find people.
Or different activities like this that you go to, where you meet some fabulous people who are more than happy to reach out and help. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just going to mention that too, Tiffany. You read my mind as far as, like if you go to job fairs and you listen to someone speak, or you attend webinars like this and you're inspired by what they said, or you really, one of their stories resonated with you really well, like reach out to them and do it in a professional way and make sure that you're telling them the context and saying, hey, I saw this speech you gave. I would love to just, stay in contact with you or have a coffee or something. Those are great opportunities. And then real quickly, I just wanted to add something in too, because I don't know that people always think about it from this perspective, but I've had a number of mentors in my life, both male and female. And one of the things that I actually like telling my mentees is, there are going to be mentors. A mentor doesn't only have to be someone that you respect and that you learn only good things from. I have had plenty of mentors in my life that, were either my former bosses, or maybe I was paired up with them for some reason. And as I observed them, as I met with them, talked with them, I learned a lot of things, and I saw and observed a lot of things that I was like, I don't necessarily agree with that, or that made me feel uncomfortable, or my coworker just came and told me that what they did in a meeting made them uncomfortable. And so I took all those things, and I even count those people as mentors, because they're kind of mentors of what not to do and what kind of a leader you don't want to be. So that's fantastic. Thank you. And one more quick question from the chat. I'm curious if you can speak about the importance of being involved in groups and professional organizations, particularly those like HerCDM, and the role it's had in your career as a female leader. So Tiffany, have you been a part of some organizations that you feel like have helped you?
Absolutely. I'll choose one. It's called Information Technology Senior Management Forum, ITSMF. We affectionately call it It's My Family. And it has been an integral part, actually, of my career, my development. I've done a couple professional development programs through this organization. It is geared mostly towards people of color in technology, because as you can imagine, as a woman, we're certainly outnumbered generally in this industry by men. As a person of color, we're more outnumbered as a smaller subset. And one of the programs that I did, kind of going with the HerCDM, it's called Emerge Academy, which is actually specifically for women of color in technology. And if there are women of color on the line and you want to know more information about this organization or the program, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to share it with you. But for the first time in my entire career, I was in a room of 20 other women of color in technology. That's not something that happens. And to share our experiences, to share for those who maybe don't identify, but Black hair is a thing. Like, it's a thing. And to have other women who are like, oh my gosh, you know what I'm talking about? Yes, I know what you mean. And just have that fellowship, but also being there to once again support each other, knowing that there's others who've had those experiences who can help you avoid those same mistakes because they've done them, or even just a safe place to open up about the challenges that we experience. So organizations like HerCDM, organizations like ITSMF and the Emerge Academy, they are integral to what I call recharging. We've spent almost an hour together today. I'm hoping that most of you walk away feeling like, wow, yes, I can do this. And that's what this gives us is, you get that armor back on, ready to go back out and fight another day, because you know that there's somebody else, lots of somebody else's who are having similar experiences, but you can pick up the phone, send a chat, send a text, and know that they'll boost you up on those days when you need a boost. So I absolutely encourage you to stay connected to this organization. And as you continue to grow in your career, what other organizations can be that source of recharging for you? So, Jen?
Yeah, I loved your recharge. I'm totally going to steal that, by the way, that term of recharging, because I definitely have some groups that I use for recharging.
Exactly.
I think something else you can get out of these groups. So Dell has a Women in Action employee resource group. In fact, they've got a whole bunch of them to choose from environmental to faith-based to women to the Black Network Alliance, literally anything you'd like to be a part of, they've got it available. And you don't have to just be that part to be in it. Like, we have men and women in action, which is wonderful. But in those organizations, you get that recharge, but you also get an opportunity to attend a lot of learnings like you all are doing right now. In those organizations, we get to hear from some amazing leaders inside and outside of Dell, CEOs of companies. We've heard Michael Dell speak to us as well, some powerful women within the company. And so you learn things from them, just like you guys are learning today. And so those organizations just give you a really different perspective and little tools and nuggets that you can file away and put in your tool belt to really be able to help enhance your career and to enhance your network. Back to, like they're saying earlier, if you hear or see somebody say something like Danielle said earlier, shoot them a note. I heard you speak on this and this was wonderful. Could I grab a coffee with you sometime? And that's helped me build my network as well, not only in the local group that I'm in, but by able to attending these virtual trainings and these national webinars and being able to follow up with people. So yes, definitely find something that you're passionate about. You get that recharge, you get those nuggets. And I think it's something really, really vital to do.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So I know our time is almost coming to a close here. Tiffany, I know you, there's my dog. That's the world we live in now. So my dog says it's time to wrap up. But definitely thank you, Tiffany, and I hope I can speak for you too, Jen, as far as if anybody on this call wants to reach out to any of us, feel free to do that. And, we're on LinkedIn, we're, some of us are on Twitter, and email addresses, actually, if we can toss my email address up there for sure. If anybody wants to get in touch with any of the three of us, feel free to email me and I can just definitely connect us. But I hope people at least got some nuggets of wisdom out of today. And I definitely want to thank Jen and Tiffany and my dog for being here with us today and sharing their insights and their experiences. And Jillian, thank you and HerCDM for kind of giving us this platform to be able to share.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. I think I speak for everyone listening that I feel so lucky to be able to hear from such strong, inspirational women. I cannot thank you enough. I learned so much, and especially being a college student and going off and being prepared to go into the real world. This was so helpful to hear.
You guys stay motivated and stay in STEM.
Yes, agreed, 100%.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.